Hello and welcome to episode of In the Trench with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Thank you all for stopping by. Today we've got a very special guest, Gunny from NY Jets Situation Report. Gunny, thanks for coming on, man. How's it going?
Hey, Bubbs, how you doing, man? I'm doing good, brother. I'm doing good. Just excited to be here talking football with you. Appreciate you for the invite, man, to have me on today.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to this. We've got a lot to dive into. It is, the middle of June here. We're getting during this 40-day period where we're waiting for, Jets training camp to start. Obviously, they'll open up a week earlier with the Hall of Fame game. So the urgency is definitely there. The excitement's there. There's a lot of, just want the season to be here already as, there's a lot of excitement. I wanted to start off, though, talking about the quarterback. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is here. It was a wild off season, a whole lot of reports, many different options from, the Derek Carr talk to the Lamar Jackson talk. We ended up with Aaron Rodgers. We've got a Hall of Fame quarterback. Just your excitement on him and everything that just you're feeling with Aaron Rodgers and how exciting this is to have a Hall of Fame quarterback here with all the pain that we've had to go through the past couple seasons.
Yeah, man. It's kind of a dream, right? I remember when Aaron Rodgers was being talked about as a possibility towards the back end of the season last year. Paul Boy Green, the Buffalo Jets fan, were talking about it being something that was feasible. And I remember saying to those guys, "You guys are crazy, not possible." I think Derek Carr being a incoming free agent would have been the most logical and most realistic option. Aaron Rodgers is somebody that like you want to have on your team, but you never think leaves Green Bay. You never think the Packers are going to let this man go, being the legend that he is on the field. So for me, I thought it was a pipe dream. Didn't think it was going to be a realistic possibility. So my focus was on, all right, Derek Carr. If we can't get Derek Carr, then we got Jacoby Brissett as a backup plan, right? So I'm going down to tier B, tier C type of quarterbacks. And man, long and behold, the rumors started happening. It started picking up steam. Where there's smoke, there's usually fire. We got freaking Aaron Rodgers, man, as our quarterback, and I couldn't be more excited. I don't think I felt this level of excitement since the 2009-2010 season. I'm so pumped for it because you saw what this team did last year and what we could have achieved if we even had a basic quarterback. I've been telling people all off season, if we had Jacoby Brissett last season with the way this defense played, we win the AFC East. People think I'm crazy. I'm like, look at the stats. Stats prove it. We would have won the AFC East. So to have Aaron Rodgers be our quarterback right now, man, the conversations about Super Bowl or bust, I think, are warranted because that's how good this guy is. That's how much better he makes this team. I'm pumped, man. I'm pumped to have Aaron Rodgers here as our quarterback.
Yeah, totally. And you hit the nail on the head with the Jacoby Brissett, comparison about if we had an average quarterback. You put Daniel Jones in there last year. You even put, if they would have benched Zach at the end of the half at the New England game, the second time we played him, obviously up in Foxborough, you probably win that game. Who knows how the season ends up playing out? But to now have Aaron Rodgers, like you mentioned, have a Hall of Fame quarterback. The potential of this team is Super Bowl. That's so. It's just so great to say that with everything that we've gone through. When you look at, a little bit of the backup options, are you worried at all? I know, again, I'm one fan that I'm not really worried about the backup, but would you be interested in bringing in like a Teddy Bridgewater or somebody like that just in case if something would to happen?
So I'm kind of with you on this one, right? Well, I'm not too stressed out about the backup situation. I think Aaron Rodgers has proven he's a warrior on the field. The guy plays through injuries, and again, Aaron Rodgers at 50% is still better than freaking a good portion of the quarterbacks in the NFL. We saw last year with a broken thumb on his throwing hand, he still finished with top 10 stats on the year. So I'm not too concerned about it personally. And in all actuality, if Aaron Rodgers goes down, I kind of think that our season's probably going to be taking a bit of a dip, right? The expectations take a dip. So at that point, is Zach Wilson going to come out there and potentially show us how he's learned from Aaron Rodgers and potentially be better? I don't know. I still am not one to completely quit on Zach Wilson's ability in terms of what his ceiling could be if he could freaking put it all together upstairs. The guy has incredible arm talent. It's obvious. I just think that mentally he was broken. Not having an experienced freaking offensive staff probably didn't help him either. So I'm actually kind of on that fence of, you know what, if Aaron Rodgers goes down, Tim Boyle should be able to kind of, put a couple of games together.
Yeah.
But if not, we get to see Zach Wilson come out there and hopefully see progression. Because the ideal situation here is we get Aaron Rodgers for the next 2 to 3 years. And by the time Zach Wilson's going into his final year of his contract, he gets an opportunity to prove himself. And he's learned something from Aaron Rodgers, right? And he makes himself, I'm not going to say he's going to be elite, but at least maybe he's good. Maybe he's average, right? And that in itself could be, this warrants significantly how much we're going to be paying Aaron Rodgers for the next couple of years. So I'm with you, man. I'm not really stressing it. I understand where some of the fan base is concerned about it, and they want to bring in a Teddy Bridgewater. But Teddy Bridgewater is not going to come here without the guarantee of being number 2, right? He's looking for a chance to start in the league still or be a guaranteed number 2. And at the price point we're talking about too, I think that money could be used elsewhere towards positions of need, like bringing in a Quan Alexander. Let's get Q's contract taken care of. I would love to restructure Aaron Rodgers' number so the cap hit next season is not $106 million. That would be nice. So, so I look at those things and I see the money can be used, you know what I'm saying, in better warranted areas, vice a backup quarterback, especially when Aaron Rodgers really doesn't miss games.
Yeah, definitely. And you obviously were spot on with, him learning from Rodgers, and we'll get a very good look at Zach with the 4 preseason games, obviously starting in Canton with the Hall of Fame game. I'm not really too worried about it. Aaron Rodgers, our quarterback. I'm not really worried about the backup situation. It's just, we got a Hall of Fame quarterback. As long as he's out there, we're going to be winning games, and that's all that matters.
Thanks.
So, moving on here to the running back room, which has been really kind of an interesting topic of conversation over the past couple weeks with Dalvin Cook news in Minnesota. Obviously, he's now available. I guess I'll start before we get into Dalvin Cook. Just your thoughts on where this running back room stands currently for really young, explosive guys. Obviously, Breece Hall coming back into the mix last year after the injury last season, or this season after the injury last year. Just your thoughts on where it currently stands. Obviously, drafting Izzy out of Pitt, another explosive guy. Currently, what are your thoughts on this running back room?
I love our room. I think we have an incredible room. Albeit we need to go ahead and get a healthy Breece Hall back. And again, I'm on that fence of like, if we get a Dalvin Cook, am I going to be mad about it? No, I won't be mad about it. But I don't think it's one of those situations where, do you hear that beeping?
I think so, yeah.
That's just me. What is that? Sorry about that. I don't know what that was. But if we get a Dalvin Cook, am I going to be upset? No. Dalvin Cook is somebody that still thinks has some gas in the tank, right? I think he's 27, 28 years old. He still has that breakaway speed. He's an experienced running back in the NFL. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler. I'm not going to be upset if we somehow get Dalvin Cook in the building. But in terms of overpaying for a Dalvin Cook or just doing too much in terms of value, that's going to take away from putting money where I think matters most in other position groups. I'm comfortable with our running back room. I'm really excited about the Izzy pick. That's like you said, it's a home run hitter, right? This guy can pretty much smoke you from anywhere on the field. I think Michael Carter had a down year last year. People are saying, well, Breece Hall was able to go ahead and make it work with that O-line. Okay, Breece Hall is an elite running back option, whereas Michael Carter is a good running back option. People need to stop doing this whole thing where Elijah Moore sucked, you know what I'm saying? Because Garrett Wilson could get 1,000 yards. Why can't Elijah Moore? There's a difference between elite talent and then good talent, right? Good talent needs things around them for them to do what they do. Elite talent can do whatever they want without help from anybody else. There's a big difference. And so for me, I think Michael Carter is a good talent. I like the running back room as is, but again, if the price is right, I am not opposed to bringing in a Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, like the Michael Carter stuff, kind of a sophomore slump. It seems like he might have been dealing with a little bit of an injury. Even Bam Knight was super explosive at first. You saw him in that Bears game, and then towards the end, that Seattle game where we were just limping to the finish line with the offensive line, like the entire all of the running backs just took a hit. I don't think it was just Michael Carter. You saw it from the entire team. I mean, Mike White was under pressure every play, it seemed, because it was so banged up. So I guess, again, if the price is right, do you see the Jets eventually making that move, or do you think this is just more of a kind of seeing what's out there, but they'll probably won't pull the trigger?
Well, I think in this situation, I kind of revert back to what Coach Saleh said, right? When it came to the D-Hop conversations, hey, D-Hop's free. Is he coming? He was just like, yeah, no, we're not interested. Right to the point. Didn't freaking drag anybody along. With Dalvin Cook, he was like, oh, we're going to go ahead and, entertain that. We'll see how much it's going to cost. I think there's genuine interest there. Now, I know some people have been saying that Dalvin Cook has genuine interest in the Jets as well, but For me, I think there's some hyperbole there. I refuse to get myself in a situation with a Tyreek Hill situation like last year, where we thought, oh my God, he's going to be a freaking Jet. He wants to be here,
Mhm.
just so the Dolphins pay more for him to go over there, right? So
Yep.
I think Dalvin Cook is trying to go ahead and up his price point. I do believe he winds up with Miami, which I hate. I would not like
Yeah.
the Miami Dolphins to get the dude. The Miami Dolphins
Yep.
are the team, I think, in the AFC East that most concerns me, believe it or not. Some people think it's the Bills still, but I'm like, yeah, the Bills. I think a healthy Tua can do some damage with Jalen Waddle,
Mhm.
Tyreek Hill, and if you add Dalvin Cook in the mix, man,
Yeah.
that's just a three-headed monster for him to work with. So, I would rather him go to Buffalo, if I'm being honest, than to go to the
Yeah.
Miami Dolphins. But I think at the end of the day, he winds up in Miami. The interest, I think, is legit, but I think more so it's to try to push Miami to up their price points. Otherwise, I think he would become a Jet. If the money is not a factor that he wants to get, I think he becomes a Jet, because we probably give him the best chance to potentially see a championship.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a Brees Hall 1-2 punch with Dalvin Cook. Definitely. I mean, it's got to get any fan
Oh my
excited. I
God.
mean, with the
Yeah.
potential those two guys had. I mean, Dalvin Cook's had 4 1,000-yard seasons the past 4 years in a row. And Brees Hall is just like so much talent. He's only getting going. So definitely exciting running back room, and looking forward to seeing the potential possibility of Dalvin Cook coming here. We move on to the receiving room. Obviously, we touched on DeAndre Hopkins a little bit. And then, even Odell earlier in the offseason being interested in him. It seems like, the Jets have shown interest on obviously Odell and D Hop. They didn't really seem as interested. They didn't seem interested in at all in D Hop. Do you find that a little, I guess, surprising given their interest in Odell? Although it didn't seem like D Hop really wanted to become a Jet, with naming a ton of quarterbacks that he would like to
Yeah.
play with, and Rodgers wasn't one of those on the list. So are you surprised at all with that?
I, I think it's more along the lines of just seeing just how much our front office has grown, right?
Mhm.
They're not going to beg anybody to come here and be a
Yep.
Jet. They're not going to beg anybody or overpay anybody. Like, this is what the market looks like. This is what we're going to dictate to you. You need to want to be a Jet to come here. I think freaking DeAndre didn't do himself any favors when he was asked that question and made the face
Yep.
and didn't want to come there. Cool, got it.
Mhm.
So you're not interested in us, we're not interested in you. Whereas Odell was adamantly, you know what I'm saying,
Yep.
talking about, the Jets, and he showed insight and interest and wanted to be a New York Jet. In fact, Odell wound up giving us a call after the
Yep.
Ravens gave him all that money. He was just like, oh man, hey, Joe, listen, this is what they're offering me, man. Can you guys match or come close? Because he still
Mhm.
wanted to be a Jet. Ultimately, that was not going to happen, so he wound up
Yep.
being a Raven. Good luck to him. But I think I love it personally. I love it. I love the fact that Joe took that, and Coach Salas took that, and they said, okay, cool. He doesn't want to be a Jet. We don't want him
Yep.
either. And that's how we know we're in a different space. And to be honest with you, I'm not the one of the guys that think that our wide receiver room needs to be freaking built from a Madden
Mhm.
roster where you got to have
Yeah.
a 99 all across the board for it to matter. I think people have been spoiled a bit by, I think the situation over there in Cincy with Jamar and T Higgins, right? Like,
Yeah.
very few, or Devontae Adams and AJ Brown, but very, very few freaking teams have two number one wide receivers on the roster.
Yep.
Very few teams do it, right? And Patrick Mahomes won a Super Bowl last year without a
Yep.
number one wide receiver on the
Yeah.
roster. So for me, I just find all this "let's build a Madden freaking team here" thing to be
Mhm.
ridiculous. I love our wide receiver room. I think everybody slides down to where they need to be. I don't believe freaking Alan Lazard is a number one. He's a number two, number three wide receiver. He's in that role now with Garrett Wilson being number one. Corey Davis, I think, is a high-end wide receiver number two when he
Yep.
has a wide receiver number one in front of him. We've seen that
Mhm.
when he was in Tennessee. He now is wide receiver three, wide receiver two, right? Like, these guys have now
Mhm.
literally gotten better by the addition of an Aaron Rodgers, but Garrett Wilson showing us he's one of them guys. He's a dog, right? He's a
Yep.
wide receiver one in the NFL. So our wide receiver room is stacked, and we've got depth all over the place. So for me, I love our wide receiver room. I didn't think we needed OBJ when he was an option,
Yeah.
and I didn't think we needed D Hop when he became available. But that's because I'm looking at it in the realistic sense of not every freaking team in the NFL is going to have
Yeah.
two number one wide receivers on the roster. Like, everybody just loves big names. They just say, oh my God, it's a big name. I want them. But that's not how teams are built. And yes, we got a small window here with Aaron Rodgers, but I don't want to mortgage our future either to where we can't make any
Yep.
moves. We become the LA Rams in like 3 years because we decided to go for
Yep.
all these big names just because. So I love the steadfastness of our front office. I love our wide receiver room as well. And I love the depth that we have. McCall Hardman, I think, is significantly underrated. This is a dude that was doing work. You know what I'm saying, in Kansas City, behind Tyreek Hill. He was wide receiver 2. Now he's wide receiver 4 for us. Randall Cobb was a wide receiver 3 for the Packers last year. He's wide receiver 5 for us. Like there's legitimate talent and mix of depth and youth in terms of a wide receiver room that should explode and work very well together this coming season.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more, because I think there's a lot of people out there that feel that the Jets receiving rooms, like outside of Lazard and Garrett Wilson, there's nobody. And that's just, as you mentioned, that's not true. I mean, there's a lot of depth there. And even last season, we saw a lot of times we had so much trouble converting in the red zone. And guys like Lazard is good in the red zone. Obviously, Cobb's had success in the red zone over his years, and those are most of where, and he'll get snaps obviously outside of the red zone, but he'll get a good portion of snaps inside the red zone, which was one of the biggest weaknesses of this offense last year. So I like where this receiving room is at. I mean, I think we've improved. I mean, again, we a lot of us talked about how good Barrios was last year. I mean, McCole Hardman's like a big upgrade over Barrios. Like he can, do a whole lot more, especially as a receiver, not just as, a returner like, Barrios was able to do. But I like where it's at. And I want to ask a little bit more about Garrett Wilson, because again, 1,100 yards last year with 4 different quarterbacks throwing to him. It was just crazy what he was able to do with all of that mix up at quarterback, and in his rookie year, having to learn the game, all of that, and to still put up the numbers he put up in year 1 was so just amazing. Do you think at the end of this year, Aaron Rodgers elevating the guys around him, you could see Garrett Wilson being in the conversation of the Jamar Chases, the Justin Jefferson, the Diggses, Devontae Adamses of the world, where he's a top 5, top 7, legit number 1 receiver in the NFL?
Without question. I think the addition of Aaron Rodgers incorporated with a guy like Garrett Wilson puts him in the realm of seeing a Devontae Adams type of explosion. And I say that not to go ahead and just be, cocky or arrogant about it. It's just the fact that you said it beautifully. You saw him perform in spite of having no help last year. He didn't have worse quarterback play in the NFL. There were backups on all the other teams that had better quarterback play from those backups than the New York Jets had collectively last year as a team. And on top of that, you lose Breece Hall, which means everybody and their mom knew, okay, well, Garrett Wilson's that guy. That's who we got to take out of the game. And it couldn't be done. Garrett Wilson is a special character, and I sit here telling you I didn't have him as wide receiver number 1. I thought Chris Olave was more likely going to be that dog that was going to be wide receiver number 1. And hell, I had Christian Watson, believe it or not, a little higher on my board in terms of favorite wide receivers from that draft. And boy, was I wrong. This is why I'm not a general manager. You know what I'm saying? I'm a fan that watches the game, not a GM. Garrett Wilson being picked at number 10, I went from being pissed off to elated as to that pick now. I think that kid's going to be a top 5 guy when it's all said and done. Continuously in that conversation of top 5 guy when it's all said and done.
Yeah, totally. I think that's so exciting. And another reason why I like where this receiving room's at, because you potentially have a top 5 receiver in the NFL for the next, however long he's here, hopefully, second contract, all that great stuff. But that's down the road. Now we move on to the tight end room, which I think a lot of us can agree last year was, underwhelming for Conklin and Uzomah. And again, big reason of that was the quarterback situation, which is a big reason why this offense was never able to really take off last year. I'm excited to see what this tight end room could do this year, especially with Jeremy Ruckert, who dealt with some injury last year, used it as a redshirt year, kind of just learning the offense, had a lot of growth that he needed to make. Just your thoughts on Ruckert. Could you potentially see him, in a hybrid role this season? Got a lot of that athleticism, just a really young, solid guy that hopefully can be kind of our future at that spot.
I love Jeremy Ruckert. When the pick happened, I loved it. You know what I'm saying? I thought it was one of those great stories, fan of the Jets growing up. Now he gets to play for the Jets. His father's reaction was just epic. I think that he is potentially the most talented tight end we have right now in that tight end room. But I still think when it comes down to it, CJ Uzomah and Tyler Conklin want to make it very difficult for him to go ahead and get on the field. I think you're going to see him in roles this year to kind of show us what he's capable of. You kind of saw a flash of it towards the back end of the season last year when he showed you what he's capable of doing. I think you're going to see him put into some packages. I can see him playing that fullback hybrid role as well. He's a willing blocker. You know what I'm saying? He's got good hands, great route runner. The kid is got gifts. He's gifted. But more so than anything, he loves the New York Jets. When you have
Yep.
when you have football players who are that passionate about the team they play for, anything can happen. And again, when Aaron Rodgers is at the helm, he's going to dictate, you know what I'm saying, the trajectory of some of these careers. I do think right now, early on, you've seen the rapport built with CJ Uzama. I think
Yep.
Tyler Conklin, who last year I thought was going to be a beast for us,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, due to the freaking quarterback play,
Yep.
we never saw it come to fruition. I think he's going to lead the Jets in the tight end room in terms of receptions and potential touchdowns. But I think you're going to see CJ Uzama in there a lot too for some impact plays. That's going to help us down the road. Our tight end room again is another deep unit, right? And even
Yeah.
this Coons kid,
Yep.
who I had no clue who he was until
Yeah.
we drafted him, and a physical freak, right? A physical freak of nature. So somebody that big, that tall shouldn't be that fast. It doesn't make sense. But here he is. So we've got a tight room right now that at any given moment, any one of those guys can pop. They can all catch. They're all willing blockers, so that makes them interchangeable. That's going to give defenses, nightmares. Like crap. Whenever this freaking tight end comes out, are they blocking or are they going out on a route? We don't really know. And that to me is going to be a component of the game, which we saw Aaron Rodgers utilize quite a bit in Green Bay when Nathaniel Hackett was the OC. Is going to be an important component to our offense. So it wouldn't surprise me, man, if all of these guys get involved and become impactful players. But I still think Tyler Conklin this season is going to be the one that leads them in receptions and potentially receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny you mentioned, Conklin last year. When I did my preview prediction show, I thought Conklin would be one of the biggest contributors on the offense.
Same here.
And I was so excited to see what he can do. And then it just, like the entire offense, the wheels kind of just fell off. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing what these guys can do. Again, to go back to kind of the red zone as well, big body tight ends in the red zone. You hope that they can be utilized a whole lot more than what, Zach, Mike White, Chris Streveler, and Flacco did last year. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. As we move on here to the offensive line, one of the bigger storylines going into training camp will be the Dwayne Brown, Mekhi Becton left tackle competition. We'll start with that. Your thoughts on that, and who do you eventually see winning it out? It seems like Dwayne Brown definitely got the inside track, and it seems like Salah's kind of basically saying, like, this is Dwayne's Brown. Mekhi's got to come in here and absolutely dominate in order to take it from him. But how do you see that playing out at left tackle?
I think Dwayne Brown is our left tackle going into the season. And then we're going to have our boy Mekhi Becton at right tackle. And I love the fact that Coach Salah is making the competition. And who knows, maybe there's an off chance that Mekhi can come out there and just freaking bulldoze his way into it. And then now you've got Dwayne Brown as the backup left tackle, right? Because he's not playing right tackle. There's no way Dwayne Brown's going to the right. So you want to get your best guys on there. And for me, the best guys are going to be freaking Dwayne Brown at left. You've got freaking Tomlinson at left guard. You're going to have Tippmann as our center. We got our boy Elijah Vera Tucker at right guard, and I think Mekhi Becton should be the right tackle. You put your best guys up front. Now, if somehow Mekhi beats out Dwayne Brown, you're now moving Max Mitchell into that right tackle role, which again we like some of the stuff we saw with him last year with Max Mitchell. So I'm not completely like off about that aspect, but again, I love to see our best guys on the field with Aaron Rodgers at all times. And I think Mekhi Becton is going to embrace that role. I don't think he's going to beat out Dwayne. I just don't. The guy hasn't played ball in 2 years. He looks fantastic. He looks great, right? He's finally taken his health seriously and his conditioning seriously. I think the impact of having a child allows a man to grow up a lot faster sometimes, and that might be it. Or it is a contract year. Perhaps that has to do with it too, right? Ultimately, I think he's going to have to go ahead and earn his check on that right side. I don't think he beats out Dwayne Brown on the left.
Yeah, I agree too. And especially, some of his comments that he made about, the Jets and the coaching staff telling him to, push through it last year at right. I think the way that Dwayne Brown easily could have retired, took his money and left last year, played through the shoulder injury, and then came back again this year, I think just shows you how much not only does he mean to the coaching staff, but the locker room as a whole. And again, Salah talks about guys that love this game, that want to win. Dwayne Brown is definitely one of those guys, and
he embodies it.
It's only fair to like reward him with that left tackle spot. And Becton, I again, you talk about putting your best 5 guys out there. Becton, I would probably say, again, Max Mitchell, as you mentioned, showed some signs last year, but Becton's probably on the long run is the better option there than Mitchell. But there's a lot of depth. I mean, Douglas has done a good job picking up a lot of depth. He kind of went into the
Yep.
offseason and needed that depth, and he picked up, Billy Turner and, Wes
Mm-hmm.
Schweitzer, who can play pretty much everywhere. But back to the center for a second here. I guess you see, do you see Tippmann beating out, McGovern, or do you feel there's any potential that Rodgers would want somebody, a veteran, in front of him there, or you think he's fine with, Tippmann, the rookie?
I'll say this: Tippmann is a very, very smart guy. One of the things that's
Mm-hmm.
not mentioned enough is how intelligent the kid is, and I think Aaron Rodgers being able to take a fresh canvas and kind of mold him in his image and his liking,
Yeah.
right, is going to be what
Mm-hmm.
ultimately does it. Yeah, and I get it. Having a veteran up there, to kind of like do things the way Aaron Rodgers would like it makes sense in a lot of cases, but
Yeah.
McGovern's never played with Aaron Rodgers before. So in
Mm-hmm.
essence, Aaron Rodgers would have to be teaching him anyway in terms of how
Yeah.
he likes things done. So why go and try to undo the 8 years of what McGovern's already learned in the NFL when you can go ahead and get a fresh canvas in Tippmann, who I think is the
Yeah.
better athlete, is stronger, is going to go ahead and protect, I think, Aaron Rodgers a bit better as well across the board. Like when you look at the two in terms of talent wise, Tippmann is heads and shoulders above McGovern. It's
Mm-hmm.
not even close.
Yeah.
Experience, obviously, that's where they differ. But I think in this situation, and Aaron Rodgers, who's been right now teaching and coaching and impacting freaking wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, just trying to go ahead and embrace some knowledge upon these individuals. Go get Tippmann. You don't have to unteach him anything. You just teach him how to game a center should be in the NFL. I think Tippmann wins it out.
Yeah, I agree too. And I want to see Tippmann. I want to see Tippmann to be the
Yeah.
future. I've
Yep.
got the Mangle jersey on now. He was the guy with the flow, and you got Tippmann with the mullet. It only seems right that he is the next guy, the center of the future. So hopefully it plays out there with Tippmann winning it. And then McGovern obviously is a solid depth piece, behind him.
Of course.
As we move on here to the defensive side of the ball, the biggest, we'll get to the safety room here in a second, which is obviously a tough blow for Chuck Clark, but
Yeah.
we'll get to them here in a little bit. But the biggest, news on the defensive side of the ball, or the biggest headline, is Quinnen Williams. Do you see this move, getting done here before training camp? Obviously, solid mention. He'll be here for training camp. The move's got to get done. He's our interior guy for the next, 5-6 years, I believe. He's one of the best in the league when you look at his numbers last year in the second year in solid system. Your thoughts on when the Quinnen move eventually, gets done?
We'll hear about this contract here in the next couple of weeks. It's going to get done before training camp starts. I think we kick off training camp in 37 days now, 38 days, something like that. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to go ahead and hear about the contracts going to be signed. Quinnen Williams wants to be here. He wants to be a Jet. He had already talked about taking a discount if they brought his brother back. Quincy's already here. We saw last season in one game without freaking Quinnen just how much our defense freaking couldn't get any kind of leverage or push on the defensive line. And the heart and soul of this defense is the D line. Like, we've got to be able to get pressure on the quarterback. Yes, we've got incredible corners and DJ Reed and Sauce. They can cover for days, right? But nonetheless, the way this defense works is through the defensive line. Without Q, we saw them just kind of dissipate into nothing. So Q knows how important he is. The team knows, Joe knows. I think the biggest concern now, and I think Jake Asman talk about this in regards to, it's the hesitation from freaking maybe, Woody from having to pay a defensive tackle what he's going to have to pay him, because you're going to pay freaking Q 100 million plus. I'm thinking like 104 million over freaking 4 years, about 65 to 70 million guaranteed. And I think that 60 to 70 million dollar check is where Woody's sitting there like, damn, man, we got to give freaking Aaron. I got to put this 100-some plus million aside for Aaron Rodgers. And I think that's where the hesitation is. They're probably trying to go ahead and find ways to kind of like offset that or spread load it over several years. But I think the amount of money's already been decided upon. He knows he's going to be the second highest paid defensive tackle in the league. I think it's all about the years needed in order to go ahead and kind of spread load that cap hit. But nah, I have no concerns about Q getting a contract done here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I definitely agree there too. I mean, I think, Salah, as he mentioned, I don't think he would say he's going to be here for camp without kind of really having a good, firm confidence that he was going to be here. Because, if he comes into camp and he's not there, the media is going to be all over. And it's just not what you want with all the positivity around this team. You just don't want that contract going over your head coming to training camp. And again, when you see, the other guy in town, Dexter Lawrence with the Giants, he got his money. You totally understand, what Q wanted his money, and the Jets should obviously, give it to him, and probably around 100 million range, which is, I think Dexter Lawrence got, I think it was in the 90s, so he's probably going to want, definitely a little bit more than that. When you look at the rest of this defensive line, obviously look at the edge, and you drafted Will McDonald, you got Jermaine Johnson, you've obviously got Clemens, who's put on a little bit more size, Carl Lawson as well, who has come into, camp jacked. I mean, he seems really confident in his ability this year, saying that he'll get 10 sacks. When you look at the edge where it's at with the Will McDonald pick and some of the youth there as well, how do you feel, with the way this edge currently stands?
I ain't gonna lie to you. When we drafted Will McDonald, I thought, well, what the hell are we doing? Right.
Yeah,
I was a little agitated about that. My initial reaction is all over my social media accounts. It was not pleasant. It was not excitement. Then, of course, you as all Jets fans will do, we were like, all right, well, this is the guy. Let's do some homework, right? And as you started to do homework on Will McDonald, you're sitting there like, how the heck did I not see this guy before? How was this kid not on my radar as being a possibility for us in the first 2 rounds? Because I really didn't think edge was going to be an option because we're loaded at edge. But Will McDonald brings a pure level of pass rushing skills that I don't think any other Jets edge rusher actually has, right? He can do it all. He can beat you through the bull rush. He can beat you through with a spin move. He can beat you with the freaking bend. He's got this freaking his spin. Oh my God. The spin move that he puts on individuals. It's just I forget the Colts defender who used to do it all the time. Man, it's reminiscent of him, but it's escaping my mind right now. But it's going to put offensive linemen in a freaking spin cycle. The kid is good, like really good, and he's fast. So Bryce Huff was tops in the NFL last year in terms of get off, right? He has some of the fastest get offs and fastest sacks on a quarterback recorded for all of last year. And Will McDonald is as fast as freaking Bryce Huff off the line. And to see that with his level of bend, his level of athleticism, his length, I think he's going to wreak havoc. Our defensive line is disgusting. I almost want to say I feel bad for opposing quarterbacks because with Aaron Rodgers being the quarterback and us getting leads, having leads early on, this defense, we thought the defense was great last year, right? We think the defense was amazing last year, but this defense is built to get after the quarterback, which is hard to do when they can run the ball on you all day because they're already up, you know what I'm saying, in the game. Yeah. The New York Jets get a lead in any game this year, and quarterbacks have to run for their lives. And that's a game changer. And I think we're looking at a couple of guys in the double-digit sack range this season. I'm actually putting us like in that Philadelphia Eagles range in terms of sacks for this coming season, just based off of the level of depth that we've got. Michael Clemens putting on the weight to move on the inside as a defensive tackle that can get after the quarterback. Jonathan Myers moving into the inside, get after the quarterback. Everybody can get to the quarterback, right? And that's a scary place to be if you're the opposing defense because you don't have enough defensive linemen or enough tight ends that can keep up with our guys.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned about Bryce Huff. I would love to see more Bryce Huff last year. I mean, in the minimal snaps he got last year, I mean, he was such a impact. I mean, it was, exactly. I mean, any time he was out there, it'd be so minimal, but you would look after the game and you would, do, the recap of the game or whatever. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying, oh, Bryce Huff had another good game. And you look at the snap count and he barely played. It's like every time he was out there, he was making an impact. It was such minimal playing time. But every time he was out there, he was doing something. He was making a play. So I would hope to see more Huff. I mean, that's, again, more depth that just can continue to produce. And then, again, the two guys that, we obviously picked up from Seattle, Al Woods and Quentin Jefferson. Quentin Jefferson, more of a guy that can get after the quarterback. And then Al Woods, a guy that is more of just a run stopper. Yeah, exactly. So, your thoughts on those two additions and what they can, also provide to this defensive front that's just explosive, as you mentioned.
Yeah, like for me, Al Woods was a must, right? That was my biggest concern when we brought in Jefferson. I was just like, all right, this is another guy that can play from the inside, right? Great, but he gets after the quarterback. He's really kind of a liability in the run game, and that was something we saw happen last year, where the run game got to us a couple of times. But bringing in a guy like Al, man, this dude is a freaking tank, built like one. And that's what he does. He specializes in stopping the freaking run. And by the
Yeah.
way, he can also get a couple of sacks in every single season, right? I think he had like 3 or 4 last year.
Yeah.
So this defensive line, in my opinion, I think is pretty complete. My biggest concern, if I had one, is the depth at defensive tackle. I don't think anybody else can do what a Quinnen Williams can do.
Yeah.
But then again, let's be honest, not many people in the entire league could do what Quinnen Williams can do.
Yeah.
But after Al Woods, who's the next run stopper? Right? Are we hoping Michael Clemens potentially could become that guy because he was a pretty good run stopper from the edge as well last year? So that I do have some concerns there. But in terms of if we're taking leads and we're not really too worried about that being the situation, well, then I'm sorry, there's not another offense that I'm really worried about in the league if the New York Jets take a lead. I can't see how anybody's going to go ahead and be able to get a ball to a wide receiver with DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner. And I can't see how a quarterback's going to have time back there with these dogs coming at them because we're up by a touchdown or two.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you're spot on. I mean, this is an exciting group, and just Quinnen's the final, big piece, as you mentioned. What we saw last year in that Lions game. I don't even think they got a sack on Jared Goff when he wasn't out there, and sure enough, they went on and won that game on that 4th down and 1 play. So. But yeah, it's defense line's definitely exciting. So moving on here to the linebacker core, which I think right now is probably missing one piece that a lot of us Jet fans want, and that's what we'll dive into right away here. That's Quan Alexander. I think with the Chuck Clark injury, with him potentially playing linebacker, now with him done probably for the season, it seems like you got to get Quan back now at that other linebacker spot.
Yeah, man. I again, that's one area that I would say if the Jets I don't have the warm and fuzzies about the Jets off the roster. It's linebacker and safety, right? I think we can all agree those are the 2 positions that we're like, man, I wish we did a little bit more. But again, going back to the fact that this doesn't matter, right? You're not going to have Pro Bowlers at every position on the field. It's just not how the game works. But I like Quincy. You know what I'm saying? I'm hoping in year 2 that he's able to go ahead and slow down a little bit because this dude ran last year like with his head was on fire. And we saw some big hits. And we got excited from him. But he also, overplayed his hand sometimes. And you saw him, pay a price for it. And CJ is the general of the defense. We get that. But he is getting older. He's not as quick as he used to be. But he's as sure of a general you're going to get on the defensive side of the ball. After that, man, I know they love Jamie and Sherwood, man. I know they're feeling good about him coming into this season, but this is where I get a little anxious when it's not going to cost an arm and a leg to bring in Quan Alexander, who we saw play at a high level for us last year. If you got Aaron Rodgers here right now, like, why not pay the man? Okay, we're not going to give him we're not going to get him for $1 million like we did last year.
Yeah.
Give the man $3 million, $4 million. He obviously wants to be a New York Jet. He's been very, very adamant about that. Give him $3 million, give him $4 million with incentives, right? Like whatever it needs to be done, but that shores up. I think that makes us all more comfortable in our linebacker group. And then we can go ahead and take the chance at safety, right? We got Adrian Amos in since we lost Chuck Clark. We can take the chance at safety, especially when you've got DBs like freaking Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, Michael Carter the second, freaking locking down individuals. You feel better, right, about then having to go ahead and take a chance at safety. But linebacker, if I had to pick a position right now that we need to do something at, I think it's linebacker. I think linebacker right now to me, if you bring in Quan, everybody's happy. Everybody feels more comfortable. I don't really understand the whole up about that one, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think as you mentioned with Quan, I mean, not only was his biggest, I guess, question mark going into last year was his health. He couldn't stay healthy, was not on the field much, and he played every game. He played all 17 games. So you were hoping, okay, just find a way to stay healthy, play, if you can give us 14 games, and try to stay healthy, not one of these 6-game seasons that he's had. Give us, a good amount of games and give us some health and stuff. And he gave you even more than that. He gave you every single game. He was out there, sideline to sideline. I mean, you loved what you saw. And again, another leader in that locker room, another guy that knows the system, knows solid system from his days in San Francisco and all that stuff. You have to bring him back. And I don't mind Sherwood. I thought he showed some signs last year. If I remember correctly, the Bills game that Mosley was hurting. He came out and made a couple plays, but I don't want Sherwood in that big role just yet. I would like him to be more in that depth role. I don't think he's ready for that role that like a Quan would take over. So that's why, definitely would love to bring in Quan. I think, as you mentioned, your win now. $2-3 million isn't going to make a huge difference in terms
No.
of bringing in this guy in. I mean, and he deserves it. I mean, you got him last year on the minimum. He
Pennies
had a
on the
good year.
dollar.
He's gonna, yeah, he's gonna want more. So, that's a move definitely that's got to be made. So, kind of going back from linebacker, going now to safety, as they both are again positions of need for Jets fans. We'll break down the safety spot one by one here. Just the Chuck Clark injury news is just awful. I was looking forward to seeing what he can do.
Same here.
A guy that can play pretty much anywhere. Obviously, could have played a little linebacker box, all that stuff. A guy that played 1,000 something snaps consecutive to now get hurt. It stinks. It's unfortunate, but your thoughts on Chuck Clark going down and the potential that he had here.
Man, Chuck Clark was exciting. When I heard that Joe Douglas was able to acquire him for a bag of peanuts, I was pumped about it. I was like, wow, the Ravens just gave up their starting safety for nothing. And to bring him into a safety room where we've all saw Jordan Whitehead take a dip where we thought we were getting one variation and we've got a completely different. It was nice to get a guy like Chuck Clark who's been consistently, doing it for years in the league, especially on a team like the Ravens. Those guys, pride themselves on defense. So him going down is devastating. But again, we really haven't heard any kind of like legitimate finalized news on Chuck Clark. Have you heard anything? Because I've been looking to see if anybody verified, like, yes, he is indeed got a torn ACL and he's out for the season. All we heard last was like he's getting a second opinion.
Yeah, that was it. That was the last thing I heard was from Zach Rosenblatt, I think it was. Well, everybody kind of caught on to it. I think he was the first one. He said, he's going for a second opinion. I believe it happened on the last day of OTAs.
Or OTAs is what they said.
Yeah. So it's another reason why I'm kind of okay without mandatory minicamp, but so.
Yeah, I'm with you too. Keeping these guys healthy is priority number one, right? When Aaron Rodgers came up limping a little bit and day one, man, my heart dropped, bro. I digress, knock on wood. Hey, he's fine. But yeah, the loss of Chuck Clark, I think, sucks. But then you're going to talk about Adrian Amos, bringing him in. So I think you lose a Chuck Clark who does, I think he's more versatile, who does more things. But then you bring a guy like Adrian Amos, who I think is more of that free safety, that can go ahead and be a ball hawk on the back end, but not afraid to tackle either, right? He's also been known to go ahead and get up there and make some tackles in the run game. I think losing Chuck Clark, our safety room got worse, even with adding Adrian Amos. If I'm being honest, I just feel like I think what Chuck Clark brought to this scheme, the versatility would have allowed him to just be all over the place, causing havoc against offenses. But I mean, it's unfortunate, and I don't even know if does this mean we re-sign him next year because he's on his last year of his deal. Like, will he ever get a chance to actually play as a Jet? Like, now we don't know, right? It's just it sucks. I think he would have been a hit for us.
Yeah, totally. And when you look at that room from where it was last year with Whitehead and Joyner, you go into this season like, okay, you got Amos, you got Whitehead, who hopefully can get back to the player he was in Tampa, which was an explosive, big-time thumper in the secondary, which last year, I mean, he just seemed like he lost it. It was kind of weird. And then you add Chuck Clark back into the mix, and now you're back down to where you kind of started and maybe even a little worse. But my concern, too, comes in, and they cut Will Parks, which I'm not going to sit here and be all upset that they cut Will Parks. I like Will Parks. I thought he was, a solid depth guy. I mean, I thought he brought a little bit of energy when he was out there. Again, he didn't get a ton of playing time, but it was depth. But I mean, I guess this coaching staff seems very invested in Tony Adams. They seem like he's the real deal. And then I guess, if you go even down the list, Trey Dean, who is obviously out of Florida, the undrafted free agent. Some people have been, saying that he's been showed out a little bit at OTAs, and we'll see what he can do in training camp. But are you worried at all, too, with where this depth stands?
Again, no. And I say no because I know the heart and soul of our defense is specifically that defensive line. And if those guys are healthy, I think we're good. If Sauce Gardner is healthy, we're good. And if we got CJ Mosley, I think we're good. Like I don't think there's a key piece on the safety side that I'm like, oh my God, if we lose one of these safeties, like the season's over.
Yeah.
Whereas we can look at the defensive line and be like, oh my God, if we
Yeah.
lose Q, like this defense is going to go to crap, right? Like,
Mhm.
and for me, because of that, I'm like, look, I love the safeties. I love our defensive line. I don't think quarterbacks are going to have enough time to go ahead and sit back there and launch balls down the
Mhm.
field. But yeah, you're right. The safety room is in essence the same as it was last year, is what it boils
Yeah.
down to. And it wasn't a great one. But Whitehead is 26 years old, right? I
Yeah.
have a hard time believing he forgot how to play football.
Yeah.
Maybe it was an adjustment period, and let's just hope that's
Mhm.
what it was. Adjustment period. And then in year 2, he's able to play more with his skill set and play fast without having to think too much. Adrian Amos, you know what I'm saying? He had a down year last year. It was
Yeah.
not impressive at all.
No.
But it shows that the year before he was good, the year before he was great, the year before that he was
Yeah.
elite. So he's been going in that downward trend. So maybe the change of scenery,
Yeah.
rejuvenates him a little bit, and we can at least get good Adrian Amos. But in
Yeah.
no way, shape, or form are we getting the elite version we saw 3 years ago. Or the great one even maybe 2 years ago. I think last year, as
Mhm.
bad as he played, if we got the good Adrian Amos, we should be very excited, which would be a slight uptick from what we saw from last year from Joyner.
Yeah, definitely. And Jordan was kind of just done. Like he was
Bad.
old, washed. I mean, he was
Yep.
it was
Yeah.
not good.
He was
And it
cooked.
definitely showed.
He
Yeah,
was cooked.
without a doubt. So and then as you mentioned, with Amos, but another guy too that's a leader, was a captain, veteran. So another guy to bring in, to this locker room, as Saul and all them continue to mention, bringing in those leaders, and another Packer, which I believe we have like 7 of them now between
Yeah.
the 6 players: Billy Turner, Rogers, Lazard,
Cobb,
yeah, and then Amos, and then obviously Hackett
Amos,
coaching.
and
So,
Hackett. Yep.
and then I think I might have mentioned Boyle, but anyway, so yeah, it's a lot of Packers, but yeah. So now we move on to the cornerback room. As you mentioned, you were pretty you made a very good point with with the safety room not really needing to be that good. It's not like this safety room is going to make or break what we do on defense, and a big reason that is this quarterback room and how good they were last year and how good you expect them to be this season. So your thoughts on this cornerback room with Sauce, Reed, Michael Carter? I mean, Sauce obviously gets all the big media coverage and all the hype, which rightfully so, rookie of the year, all that good stuff. But DJ Reed and Michael Carter are 2 underrated guys that have made big impacts as well.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I think you got like guys like Echols as well. Like we've got a lot of players in that cornerback room, right? Whether it's a testament to our cornerbacks coach or the talent in the room alone, like there's depth there, right? And you saw last year when Sauce went out, I forget which game it was, but was it Echols or was it Carter? One of the two got like literally, I think it was Echols, got attacked, like you know what I'm saying, boom. Back to back plays, right? Trying to go ahead and get a score, and he held it down. Jets don't win that game. I think it was against the Browns, actually, Cleveland Browns. He went up against Amari Cooper, and they went to him twice. The moment Sauce went out,
Yeah.
and if he doesn't hold it down, Jets don't win that game. Jets
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
don't win that game if he doesn't hold it down. So we've got a lot of depth there. We've seen these guys can play and they're hungry. And don't forget we have also Bryce Hall. Yeah, Hall.
Bryce Hall,
Yeah, Bryce
I get
Hall.
Reese mixed up all the
Brees
time.
Hall. Yeah, I'm like Brees Hall.
Yeah.
No, Bryce Hall.
Yeah.
And people forget Bryce Hall before last year. We all thought like, man, this guy was serviceable, right? Like he wasn't big on turning the ball over or interceptions like that, but passes defended. He held his own, right? Like he was a starting cornerback in the NFL. And all of our guys have starting experience too. That is so undervalued. How much starting experience the cornerback room has, that they could slide in and not have to worry about somebody looking at the bright lights for the first time and having to get. No, they've all had a chance to start on this roster. I love the depth that we have there. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think you can survive an entire season losing a Sauce Gardner. I think Sauce Gardner is just he's our generation, you know what I'm saying, Darrelle Revis. Like this dude can lock down any corner, any wide receiver. But nonetheless, we have a serviceable group of men that can go ahead and hold it down if he goes down for a couple of games, right? Like hopefully none of that happens, but nonetheless, the depth is there. Our cornerback room is solid. I don't have any concerns, no worries. There's no weaknesses in the cornerback room. I personally think it's the best cornerback room in football. Some will tell you it's the Eagles.
Yeah.
Some will say it's the Dolphins. Cool.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the talent, the starting talent, and the depth that we have, the guys behind them, we have the best cornerback room in football. And
Yeah.
I don't really think it's close.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. I mean, I think they're the best in the NFL. I mean, if you want to call me biased or whatever. I mean, I
Yeah.
just think when you look at it, Sauce and DJ Reed and all those guys, as you mentioned, I mean, I think they're Miami. I mean, as much as you have Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey isn't quite the same player he once was. I mean, you look at
No.
this Jets room, you got guys in their prime right now. I mean,
Yes.
Sauce is just entering his prime. DJ Reed is, and even Michael Carter is one of the more under the radar guys as well.
Yep.
There was one point last year, and even still now, where you look at some of the numbers. I mean, you can make an argument that they have 3 top 15 guys, in the league when you look at Carter, Sauce, and obviously DJ. So it's exciting. I mean, it's
the
funny
stats
with,
prove it.
Yeah, definitely.
Literally, the stats prove it. Like it's not even an argument. You're 100%
Yeah.
on the money. We have 3 top 15 cornerbacks in that room.
Yep.
Stats back that up from last season.
Yep. And it's so great to see this because, from the days of Tremaine Johnson and Daryl Roberts and Buster Screen and all these other all these guys that just were the corners were always just atrocious. And now to have 3 guys, 2 of them, Carter only entering his 3rd year, Sauce in his 2nd season. It's just, again, a ton of credit goes to Joe Douglas in this front office for turning this team around. I mean, it's just, it's special.
When Joe took over, we had expansion level talent on this team, like an expansion team that was just coming into the NFL.
Yeah.
And now you've got arguably one of the top rosters in the league. Like, I don't know how, you know what I'm saying? Like you don't look at that and see the impact of a Joe Douglas. Like for me, give the man an extension. I love how his approach to the game of football, his IQ, the culture he's set for this organization, the respect demanded now by other franchises, bro. Joe Douglas to me he's a dog too. He needs to get he's a dog too.
But yeah, and he's a football guy making football decisions. I mean, for a while there, it was McCagnon, and then you had Idzik before that, which was obviously nobody wants to remember that, and then Woody for a while there, and Christopher Johnson. They were making some of the decisions on the coaching hires and stuff. It was a mess. You finally have football operations, football people making the football decisions, and it's definitely paying off. So it's exciting season coming up. And before we close things out here, tell everybody where they can find you. Obviously you got your stuff you're doing with Green Bean, obviously your social media and all that cool stuff. So tell everybody where they can find you on your Jets content.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course on YouTube at New York Jets Situation Report. If you put Gunny Gumby, you're gonna go to my real estate account on Instagram and on Twitter. So New York Jets Situation Report was what to come directly for my Jets content. And I'm on a Thursday. Think of it with Green Bean every Thursday night. And on Mondays at 2 p.m. Central. I'm with my boys freaking Gino and DK Sports, chopping it up and talking football, the Jets Flight Squad. So you can catch us on YouTube doing that as well. But yeah, man, it was awesome chopping it up with you, Bubbs. I really appreciate the invite, brother.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Definitely appreciate you coming on. Exciting times to be, a New York Jets fan for sure. A lot of excitement.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely, just waiting these 40 days. I think you mentioned 37 days now out.
37 left. Yeah, 37 left.
So each day goes by, we're getting a little bit closer and closer and closer as the countdown continues. So that'll do it for an episode of In the Trench with Gang Green. As always, hope you enjoyed it. And whether you're listening on Apple or listening or watching on YouTube, thanks for watching. And obviously, if you're on Apple, thanks for listening. So we'll see you next time.